Welcome to the League of Free Worlds Information System.
And welcome, future viewers. We just hit another plot branch, and as usual, we are going to move from most failure to least failure. I like how the computer kinda gives you a little nudge if you don't press any buttons right at the start. It's a nice touch. I believe that's the only way you can get it to say that as well, just in case you are reading something. Well, so okay, I have bad news for you. I'm too busy dealing with this fighter to help you with that siren, so I mean, it's right in front of you. I know those comms are armed, so you'll be fine. Besides, it's only a couple of tiny little mines and... never mind.
Comms destroyed. Data blocks lost. Mission aborted. Return to base.
So I guess...
Jump sequence initiated.
Well, the League doesn't really have to know that there's a splinter faction with traitors that might have access to League equipment and information. What's the worst that could happen? Well, somehow that is not a game over right there.
Attacks came without warning in Alpha Centauri. The loss of the comms craft threw us into disarray. Once loyal League pilots were sabotaging our patrols. They called themselves the Faction. But the League didn't realize the desperate situation, and we were paying the price. The Empire backed the Faction to the hilt. After all, no one knew the League like its own pilots. The Tsar promised glory tomorrow in return for treachery today. Then watch as the League ripped itself apart. There were accusations and interrogations, but how could anyone know which side even the interrogators were on?
Now, that's pretty chilling. That's a really nice introduction to the faction right there.
Appear to be coming under serious threat from marauding enemy cruisers and destroyers. These craft carry offensive attack units capable of swift destructive assaults. They are having a devastating effect on League supply links and the morale of crew members. League research bases on Calliopeia are being systematically destroyed. Faction craft in the region are now engaging League craft sent to assist in the planet's defense. We currently have a cruiser under threat from a faction destroyer. Engage this destroyer and its support craft. Ensure the League cruiser is able to leave the area safely, as further hardware loss will have serious consequences.
The mission mentions the support craft, but that actually doesn't matter very much. The best way to go about this mission, I think, is to just go right for the capital ship, because you can do that faster than the faction can kill your ship, and it's just in general easier. I mean, they're sending chimeras at us, so we're not in that much danger. Plus, we have a couple of fighters on our side.
Confirm command. We will engage destroyer. We require assistance to keep any launched assault craft off our backs. Enemy fighters have been launched. Target them as highest priority.
Nah, don't do that. Don't do that. The game kinda tries to tell you that since you have a bunch of bombers on your side, but you're in an interceptor yourself, that you should go for the enemy fighters, but actually no, that's not a great idea, because your allies will not really do anything. Unfortunately, Colony Wars doesn't really have the scripting to let allied ships take down a capital ship like that. They don't fire fast enough, they don't use their torpedoes. I think Wing Commander, or at least... Does Wing Commander do that well? Last I played, when it was a mission that involved taking down a capital ship, it was, as usual, up to you. But maybe Wing Commander veterans can tell me about that. Anyway, in the time it took for me to wonder about that, that happened. Well, that faction destroyer, that, I think, none of these ships are really what one could consider to be to scale, but the destroyer is better than most. That's a fairly large thing to strafe. So I only destroyed one Navy ship in that entire mission. It was an important
Continuing
one.
enemy activity within Alpha Centauri is creating difficulties for routine League operations. Cloaking technology is enabling certain activities to go undetected. However, this presents problems for certain digital location finders. A number of League craft are located in hostile zones, having escaped Navy forces. Cloaked League destroyers are endeavoring to meet these craft in advance of recovery procedures. This may entail prolonged periods of self-defense until friendly craft are able to decloak in the vicinity. You must engage all hostile forces that threaten stranded craft. Once a League destroyer has arrived and decloaked, you may vacate the area.
I think that's what they originally wanted that mission to be like, but they didn't have time for it, so they had to kind of change it at the last minute. You'll see.
This is Command. A jump gate malfunction has been detected. You have been sent to a non-critical sector. We are endeavoring to send fleet craft support to move you to correct sector. Maintain position until fleet craft support arrives.
Yeah, nothing important is here, so you just have to shoot down a bunch of fighters until help arrives. As far as challenge goes, well, we've kind of experienced how Navy craft tends to be bad at shooting you down in general. The Thunder Child is a little better than most because it fires those missiles, but
Incoming enemy fighters detected.
other Navy fighters, not so much. The handicap you have on you is, as you've observed, very light armament. You have a laser, an anti-shield laser, and a couple of stun missiles, and that's going to have some trouble against some of the heavier fighters we're going to encounter. That being said, it's... I wouldn't say it's terribly difficult, just kind of time-consuming. I really would have liked to see the mission as described. They might have been able to throw a couple of interesting twists into that one. Oh well. Since these enemy fighters are after me, they're actually fairly easy to hit. Now, if those were faction fighters, that would change things. That would make this more interesting and difficult, and I might like it better. Especially if it was implied that the misjump was intentionally set up by faction infiltrators. Dang, did I just come up with a better mission than this one in like 5 minutes of random speculation, or like more like 2 or 3 minutes? Whatever. There's no use complaining about it. So I'm saving my stun missiles for the next wave or so, because there's a Thunder Child in there and we don't want to take too many missile hits. It would be a little different if I had at least double lasers so I could take it down faster. The avalanche bombers are going to be no problem, though. I mean, yes, they have scatter guns, but they can only fire, like, like that, like very small bursts. I wonder if that weapon was originally intended to act more like kind of a shotgun, that you could only fire in bursts like that. Well, probably still more rapid than what the Navy craft do, but anyway, just more speculation. I also find it kind of neat that they can kind of drop that bomb behind them to hit you. If dogfights were more of a thing in this game, it might be neat to have a secondary weapon that you could drop behind you to catch a pursuer. Kind of like, I don't know, firing a shell behind you in Mario Kart. Except I guess it would be a red shell. Definitely not a blue shell. And we got the final wave here. Now the shooting that I do here is more for show than anything, because all of these will be replaced once you shoot one down. Nonetheless, I feel like I'd be playing this game wrong if I didn't do this sort of thing. Plus it increases my kill count a little bit. My kill count doesn't do anything in this game, but whatever. That never stopped people. Yeah, I'm also fairly convinced that those rear lasers are anti-hull lasers, because they don't seem to do much to my shields. Well, I guess if you could only have one type, you would bring the one that could actually kill a fighter just in case it had its shields taken down by something else. Could possibly save a Stormlord under unusual circumstances.
We're here to get you out of there. Exit the asteroid field and come aboard.
Good morning. I like that little touch. They don't often give those little bits of personality to
Commencing
those
docking sequence.
capital ship captains and others, but when they do, it is highly appreciated.
Confirmation has been received from decryption units that the faction intend to negotiate a settlement with Navy representatives. It is inevitable that the League would find its aims being severely misrepresented. It is likely that defeat would follow. A Navy starport in the Hesta Zone has been named as the site of further negotiations. Enemy communications craft are currently traveling to this location. However, it is possible that the plans could be disrupted by the starport's destruction. League forces will target the starport. You are required to engage the starport's defenses. As shield levels are depleted, attempt to destroy the structure. All hostile fleet craft should also be engaged.
Ooh, that's actually a pretty decent plan on the part of the faction. Like, if they infiltrate and cripple the League enough and then negotiate on the League's behalf, that could make things pretty bad for the League. Like, really bad. How do I know that? Well, okay, yeah. You don't need foreknowledge to figure that out, though.
Welcome, bomber pilot. This is Wing Leader. We have depleted the starport's shields. Move into attack.
And I'm in
Starport destruction is required.
my least favorite ship, the Chimera. It's supposed to be a bomber ship, and it's sent on bomber missions, but its main armament is just a pair of each laser and some torpedoes. And while torpedoes are nice as an extra little bump to damage, they are not enough. They are not anywhere near enough to actually score a kill.
Navy frigate.
Like, that plasma torpedo did 2 bars of health damage. Oh, I forgot. Even though the game told me that its shields were stripped beforehand. And we need that advantage because we've got not only the starport, but there's a couple of other capital ships shooting at us from the sides. That's a fair amount of point defense bolts coming at us. So if... I know that it doesn't look like I'm avoiding a whole lot of things, but trust me, I am. I'm changing my direction and speed a fair bit. Like the Hydra, which is basically a heavy interceptor, has better ship killing, or I should say capital ship killing power than this thing does.
Severely damaged after this battle. Mission complete. Return to base.
Commencing jump sequence.
Ooh. It's not often that you take on a starport in this game. I think there might be one other time in the entire game when that happens.
Our tiny pocket of resistance was now smaller than ever. We'd lost good pilots and intelligent warriors to the faction. We'd lost valuable ships and resources. And to be honest, most of us had lost the will to fight. We'd all joined this struggle with noble thoughts and aims, and now we were reduced to slugging it out with those who used to be our friends. No one knew if the Father could save us or himself anymore. It didn't seem likely, but maybe with one last push.
And just in case that cutscene was not enough for you, I'm telling you right now that this is a critical mission right here that determines what ending you
Recent
get.
military losses have resulted in the suspension of League Navy negotiations. However, as our resources are now severely depleted, it is imperative that we are able to force the Navy back to the talks. Incoming reports indicate a number of military standoffs throughout the system. League Command, consider swift armed action to be appropriate. Opposing dreadnoughts have been identified in the Erato zone. The League ship requires immediate support. Engage all enemy craft and endeavor to destroy the Navy dreadnought. The resumption of peace talks is essential for the future of the League of Free Worlds. These military encounters could prove decisive.
Unfortunately, I don't think we learn any more about how the faction started or what their goals were exactly from the start. But I think that what we are given right now is enough for this sort of game. That being said, if anyone watching this disagrees and says so in the comments, I will be receptive to anything you might have to say. Well, for now, let's see what happens if we lose our dreadnought. Let's say I just keep chasing tornado fighters around.
Further losses could not be sustained. Remaining League troops to vacate the area immediately.
Commencing jump sequence.
That's what you get for giving me a Chimera last mission.
When the command craft docked and the sellout began, we realized the dream was over. At least, the ideals that the League had represented were finished. For a few treacherous vermin, the League now offered a passport to comfort and wealth. They had made peace with the enemy. Their deal was this: in return for the chance to fly back to the colonies boasting of victory over the Empire, the faction would ensure that theft and oppression could continue unchecked. The colonies welcomed back the League fleet and hailed them as heroes. But as the fanfares faded, the old life returned. The faction made sure that the Earth was serviced with the resources it needed, and the colonies supplied what they had, until there was nothing left to give. Most of my loyal comrades were executed by the faction. Just a handful managed to escape. One day, I hope we might rise again.
So that was somewhat better than having everything annihilated by the Empire, but not much. I'd like to think we can at least do a little bit better than that. So let's start shooting at this dreadnought. It's also viable to go after the Stormlords that are attacking your dreadnought first if you want to be on a little bit less of a time limit. It doesn't really replace those Stormlords after you kill the first one or two. But I think the more straightforward approach is the right one, especially if you're decent at cycling your weapons to deal a well-paced damage. And this fighter is pretty good at that. Even if I, as a pilot, am not always. I kind of like the design of this dreadnought too, from a gameplay standpoint as well. You can kind of fly around it and keep strafing and always have something to shoot at, even if you don't keep moving forward and backward.
This is command. The Navy dreadnought is down.
And there it
Be
goes.
proud of your work today. There's still a chance for peace. Your mission is complete.
Docking sequence initiated.
Okay, so let's see if that changes anything.
The League's Caucus for Peace met with the Empire Command as soon as the faction had been dispatched to the past. The Navy could never concentrate its force enough to finish us. To do so would have been to invite rebellion in whichever systems their battle forces left. And despite the vast reserves of anger and resentment that the League pilots harbored, the Empire could never be toppled by our meager resources. To our joy, the League was granted independence from Earth. However, the Father conceded that as the planet had been the birthplace of our species, we owed it to our ancestors to contribute to its survival. Task forces were sent to the Sol system from each colonial world, and stability was maintained. All my life has been lived listening to the sounds of battle. Now the star systems echo only to the sounds of the rebuilding. I scarcely comprehend it. It's a very strange music to me.
So sending a task force sounds fairly different from being just completely drained of everything, so that's definitely a step up. But we're not done yet. Actually, we're not even done with Alpha Centauri yet. We still have the, rescued comms craft path to go on. But after that, we're heading over to Sol. Well, that's still a little ways off, though. Now let's talk about my least favorite fighter.
S7 Chimera. Developed by a League loyalist known only as Regis during the mid-phase of the uprising, the Chimera has proved itself time and again to be one of the League's greatest military craft. Little is known about Regis, other than that he was awarded the Flower of Honor by the Father himself. He was then thought to be in such danger of naval retribution that his identity was changed and he vanished. The Chimera is a heavy bomber responsible for destroying large numbers of Navy fleet craft. This is vital, as current statistics show enemy fleet craft outnumbering the League's own by at least 5 to 1. The craft is able to operate over long distances, delivering a heavy payload with extreme precision.
Huh. So story-wise, they're an effective long-range bomber. I guess if you pretended that torpedoes were good ship killers and that they were sending more than just one or two at a time at long distances to maybe ambush formations, then I could see it being a big deal. Too bad that doesn't translate into gameplay, though. Well, I believe that's it for now. I'll see you next time.